We'd like to welcome everybody out to Surprise We Both Love Movies. Today we're going to be reviewing the live-action Mulan film that was released earlier this year on Disney+. Now, back then there was a cost associated with it. Now you can get it for free as long as you have the service. And this stars Liu Yifei, who plays Mulan, Jet Li, who plays the Emperor, and we have Jason Scott Lee, who plays Bori Khan. He's the villain in the film. This is now exclusively on Disney+, and you can watch it today. So I think everybody's familiar with the story of Mulan. It takes place in China. I'm not sure the exact year, but basically we've got some people trying to overtake some kingdoms, and you've got a small army, a group of people that go out, and they're taking males from every tribe, basically. They're taking one male out of every family in these different communities, and they have to go fight against the bad guy, the villain, Khan. And this is the live action version of the cartoon. I would say in name only. I didn't really get intrigued to want to see this film from the beginning. Mm-hmm. When I found out they were charging $20 on Disney Plus, even though I had it, I was like, definitely not. Yeah, I'm going to wait until it's streaming like normal. Uh-huh. And so I have some very strong feelings about this movie. I actually want to find out what you thought about it first.
All right. So Mulan, I originally saw the original animated version, and it was with Eddie Murphy, and it was very funny, and it had a lot of, it was an interesting story, and I enjoyed that movie. And then when I saw this movie, being, at least like 10 or 15 years since I've seen the original Mulan, I was actually kind of inspired. I thought it was a very good story. I thought they pulled it off. It wasn't like the Lion King live action where it was literally shot for shot the exact same movie.
Right.
It had a little depth to it. It was able to bring back some familiar scenes, but they had a different spin on them, and it was able to work. I mean, I believe that the girl who played Mulan, or the woman who played Mulan, she did a great job of portraying, someone who had grown up in a very, male-dominated society and then transitioned where she became a warrior, and she was able to pull it off. I mean, I was able to believe that, even though she had some, feminine features, but, she had some slightly boyish features, and she pulled it off. And I thought it was an interesting story, and I thought that the way that they redid it, it made it an interesting way. There's no dragging Eddie Murphy making jokes all the time, so that makes a different film altogether right off the bat. But I felt like it was definitely inspiring for the up and coming generation of women to go, you know what, this is something that's, it's resonating right now. And you have, a lot of, movies that are going to be more, with more female lead characters. And I thought that this did an excellent job of showing that women can be strong and still be who they are without sacrificing or, giving their life to a man in order to find fulfillment. So I thought it did a good job of doing that.
Yeah, you definitely have a different take on it than I do. I am an animated movie fanatic, and I love the original animated. Well, I don't know if it's the original animated version, but it's Disney's animated version of Mulan. And that movie had a lot of heart. Mm-hmm. The music was fantastic. And I really felt for the character in that film. In this, I did not. In fact, I don't think there's any way that she would ever be able to pull off being a guy. I didn't believe it for a second, especially when they were all face to face and they didn't recognize. I didn't buy that for a second. What? She has her face, her eyes. She has a very feminine features, especially her lips when they're talking straight to her, and especially when she's trying to pull off a guy's voice and lower her, her octave. You can tell they'd have to be the dumbest box of rocks to believe that she was a man. So I didn't buy that for a second. And
did you notice that all the guys, they had kind of softer features?
They did, but they chose people to do that. And they had to choose people that had those features, because against her, you would notice right off. So but they had to cast him that way, and that's a problem. I didn't buy it. Now, what I also didn't like at the beginning is they showed that she had supernatural abilities right from the get-go. And the beginning to me was really goofy. Whereas this movie to me had an identity crisis. They didn't know whether they wanted to stick with the humor and the fun of the animated feature, or if they wanted to go more serious with it. And so they mixed it, and it led to some goofy action, especially at the beginning. It looked really weird. So you already notice she's different from everybody else, which takes away from her taking her place later. I think the fact that she had this amazing ability as a child takes away from what she does later, because this was about her realizing who she is. She always knew who she was. She was afraid to show it because she's in a situation where if she reveals herself, she's going to be killed. So yeah, she's going to want to hold back. And so I
Right.
thought that this was it was just a miscommunication with the story they're trying to tell and actually executing it on the screen. And I'm
Right.
sorry, but the animated movie had some amazing music in it. Like the music
It
was
did. I would agree with you.
really
100%.
good.
It had
And
right.
if this movie could have been enhanced if they had actually used that music in the movie, but they used it in just a few areas and only for a few seconds. And I'm like,
Mhm.
commit one way or the other, make it a completely different movie or commit to the material. And they couldn't do
Mhm.
that. And so
Mhm.
at the end, too, I thought the end was just a little too, it was too contained. It felt very small compared to the rest of the film. And I didn't
Yeah.
like that.
But it was a very intimate kind of moment. So I felt they had to be small. Like you have these grand landscapes and big wide shots of,
Right.
the countryside, and then you kind of go into a more intimate, ending as to what happened. And I thought that was important. It came back around to family, and it always came back. And that's what that story is about, is that even though as
Yes.
grand as this was, and she was going off to, defend her family's honor and keep her father from, having to sacrifice his life, she went out there and did something that she was good at, and then she was able to have an opportunity, by going out there and doing her best to somehow find some kind of vindication or some kind of right in that situation by doing what she did. And I thought that's the core of what
Yes.
Mulan is, and it doesn't go away from that core even from the animated to the live action, but it does do it in a different way. But I thought it did it in a more mature way by doing it live action, and I felt like it was a unique movie as opposed to some of the other Disney live action.
It was, but go one way or the other, and that's my problem with it. It tried to play both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually like The Lion King because I don't think you could change that really without upsetting a lot of people. Okay. The Lion King was almost a direct one-to-one shot, and it was done
Yeah.
well. Okay. The I absolutely loved The Jungle Book. Like that was a very fun movie to watch live action.
Mm.
Aladdin upset me.
What?
Yeah, because
Aladdin was the best one.
Aladdin was
Yes,
not the best one
it
because
was the best one.
Aladdin is my favorite animated movie
Uh-huh.
from that genre,
Uh,
and they totally messed up.
no,
Totally
no.
messed up Jafar. Jafar was the one of the worst casting I've seen in a movie in decades. That
I don't
guy was so miscast, it ruined the movie. And then you've got Will Smith coming into play. Nobody can replace Robin Williams.
Well, once you say that, you're right. If you say that nobody can replace him, then you're right. You're self-fulfilling prophecy. No matter who plays that role, it's going to be a horrible movie.
He could have had more. He could have brought more energy to the role.
I thought he did excellent.
He wasn't
Excellent.
terrible, but he could
Excellent.
have done better. And so Aladdin upset me, but I would watch Aladdin before I would ever watch Mulan again. Mulan, the only part of Mulan that I liked was the very end.
I thought the last half of the movie was very good to me. Like it was, I didn't know what was going to happen. There was unique things that didn't happen in the animated version that happened in this version. You got to see her battle skills. You got to see her action. You got to see her intellect. She showed all aspects of the character's personality that you hadn't seen before. And that's why I didn't like The Lion King, because it was the exact same movie. If you like the animated Lion King, you should just watch it again, because
Yeah.
the live action one was exactly the same. You just gave $20 to Disney to watch the same movie live action that was animated 20 years ago.
I think Mulan's the same thing, though. I would tell people watch the animated movie before you ever watch the live action. What
Mm-hmm.
they did do well is I would have liked to seen more of her do what she was doing. But again, because of what they showed her do at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
what she's able to do on the battlefield, no big deal. It's not, it never ended up being
Wow.
what it never ended up being having the impact that they were trying to have, because they showed what she could do as a child. Had she gone out there and not realizing who she was at the time and had her mature and realize what she could do, that would be a bigger thing. But when you already know that you're this big, larger than life person, you're different from everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of takes away from it. My score on this,
Uh-huh.
I give it I was going to say 4, but I could probably give it a 5.
Okay.
because it's not, I wouldn't say I hate it,
Uh-huh.
but I definitely don't love it. I would always, in every situation, choose the animated version over this film.
My rating, I would have to give it a 8, and
Wow.
8 out of 10. And it was close to 9, but it didn't start out so super great. It was a little bit slower for my taste, but throughout the second half of the movie, I was completely entertained the whole time. So I can solidly give it an 8 and say that it was one of the better movies of this year. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
Yes. So that's all for this week, you guys. I want to thank you guys for watching and listening on our podcast as well. Please continue to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, iTunes Podcast Store, and Spotify. So for this week, I'm Lamont.
I'm Aaron.
And we'll see you guys next week.